Okay, so this is going to be our Xbox One X upgrade video. We have a Seagate FireCuda 2TB SSHD drive that we're going to install on this Xbox One X system. So we're going to tear it down, install the drive, and replace the front LED with a green LED instead of the white LED. And I have the controllers here. I've already done these two controllers. The same person that sent me the system actually sent his Xbox One Elite controller, and I never actually done an LED change on one of these before, so it was an experience to do. I'm going to show you a quick picture. The only difference really between this and this controller is that there are back buttons here for the paddles, and as such there's a connector from the back panel to the front panel that you need to disconnect. It's not a big deal. It's easy enough to deal with. I'll show you a quick picture, but you basically flip up one of the edges, the back edge, and then you pull the flex cable out from the other side. And then on this controller here, the only difference between this controller and these older model controllers, and the Elite actually kind of fits into that category because it has, again, that faceplate. This is the faceplate goes all the way to the edge here. The older controllers didn't. They actually stop here. Same thing that's happening on the Elite controller. And as I mentioned in my one of my other videos, these newer controllers use standard Bluetooth, so they can connect to the Xbox One or they can connect to a PC without a special adapter. And I'll show you what I mean by that. This is the Xbox One controller adapter that you use for these older model controllers because they use a non-standard Bluetooth protocol. And anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. So in here, what happens is there's an extra antenna cable that you need to disconnect. And I'll show you a picture of that as well. So those are the only two additions to this older controllers and swapping out the LED. So there's just a couple extra wires you have to disconnect. Otherwise, pretty much everything else is the same. Well, perhaps the other difference is the way these RB and LB buttons are attached to the controller itself. But anyways, enough about the controllers. Let's get on with taking the Xbox One X apart. And quickly before I do that, I just wanted to show you something which is kind of interesting. So I've already taken this apart earlier today to basically find the best method for getting the hard drive out, or the quickest method for getting the hard drive out, and removing the fewest screws. So as we're going along, I'll show you the exact screws you need to take out, and you can ignore a bunch of the others. Okay, so one great thing about the X model is that you don't need one of these pry tools to get this model open, which is fantastic. I hate the pry tools. They break all the time. It's much easier to get into. I mentioned in my unboxing video that there's a warranty seal here that I've already removed. I'll show you a quick picture of that. Once you've removed that sticker, though, you have two T10 hex bit screws that you can remove from the back. And this is new. All the see, I don't know if you can. There's not much to see. It's just a screw. But this is new compared to the Xbox One original model, where there were no outward-facing screws. And that was also true with the S. But I honestly like this a lot better. Okay, so we take these two screws out. And here's the next tip that I found rather useful. So once we take those screws out, the case itself will push forward. And we're just going to do that so it pops. And if we look at the back here, if I put it down on its face, it's going to push the case back down. But I wanted to show you on one side, and it happens to be the right-hand side, looking at it from the back. You'll see that this is flush here, whereas this side, the top, is not flush. It comes out. You can see it comes out above my fingers there. It doesn't on that side. So what that means is we want to pull the case. I want to put this down. So we're going to pull the case up from this side, basically. I think that was how I was doing it, yeah. So make sure it's pushed forward. And then what we want to do, yeah, pull the case up a little bit. Oh, okay. Okay, I've done this a few times, but you forget already. So we don't have to pull it all. So basically just lift from this side, and then it will, basically you pull up and then pull out, and the case comes right off. Now when you're putting it back, you do just the opposite of that, and I'll show you that when I put it all back together. But that's the easiest way to get this top case off. Okay, we'll put that aside. And now, this is the top of the system, just to show you the way the ports are all facing down. But you can see this is actually the back of the processor. So on the front here, so right now, this is the bottom of the system. And this is actually the, I'd say it's the RF board. I think it actually is. There is a chip here. There's a couple boards here. Oh yeah. There's actually a chip right here on the back. This is likely the wireless network, and then this is likely the Bluetooth for the controllers. I don't know for sure, but just guessing here. But there's a cable that we want to disconnect here. It's right here. So the cable itself is on the bottom, but to unlatch it, you pull away at the top, and then it lifts up like that. And now this cable will fall straight out. Now this particular system, we're going to also be doing the front light. And again, this is the front of the system. This is the light that we're going to take out. Apologize if that's a bit out of focus. I can show you a picture of a close-up of what that light actually looks like. Now I believe these are T8 as well. So there are 3 screws to remove for this. I should have mentioned that. There's 1, 2, 3. There are these gold screws. Very unique, very obvious where they go. But this just lifts straight up. So again, you don't need to do this if you're going to do the hard drive. So put that aside. Okay, so we're going to change the LED on our RF board here, and I'll show you a close-up of this picture, close-up of this unit, so you can see what's going on here. That doesn't seem to be focusing all that well, but there is a resistor right next to the LED that we need to be careful of. So this is at quite a distance to be overly useful to you, but I just wanted to show you where I can at least talk about the technique as I'm doing it. I don't have a camera that can show you real close up here, but what I'm doing here is I'm putting some flux paste from Radio Shack. I've shown this a million times, but you can get this on eBay. And we'll put a little paste on there. And then the next thing we're going to do is put solder on either end of the LED. And generally what I like to do is melt quite a bit of solder on here and then go back and forth and just take the LED off. The more solder that we have on the end of our soldering iron, the easier the LED will be to get off. But we want to be careful about is that we don't get too close to that resistor. We don't want to accidentally remove that. I don't know what the value is of that, but anyway, sorry. So we should put some solder here on the end of our tip quite a bit, and we're just gonna basically go back and forth here. There we go. And so our LED is off. So you can see that technique. I'm just going back and forth over and over again until it comes off. Then what we're going to do is add just a little bit more flux. You can never use too much flux. And then we're going to put a little bit more leaded solder on these pads. And then what I'm doing here is I'm just smoothing out the pads a little bit so that the LED sits flat. Okay, so there we go. That's the LED removed. And so I got this strip of 100 green LEDs. These are 0604 LEDs, so they're slightly smaller than the one that the Xbox has. I think the Xbox has 0803 LEDs. But the size doesn't matter as much as the luminance. So on this actual board, it actually where the LEDs put or placed, it actually shows, I'll show this on the picture, it actually shows the orientation of the LED, and you'll see this little triangle, and the triangle always points, or basically whatever the symbol is, in this case it's a triangle, always points to negative on the LED itself. And in fact, I'll take a quick picture here of this. The LED itself has a T shape, and the bottom of the T actually points to negative as well. So basically we know, between those two things, we know which orientation to put the LED. And it does matter, there is a positive and a negative point, so you're going to make sure you point it the right direction. Now, in this particular case, looks like we don't have, might have a little bit of a gap we need to cover. Let's see. Yeah, all right, just as with the S, it just fits in there. So we need to make sure that when we put solder down, to solder down the actual LED, that we put enough to make a connection between the pad and the LED itself. If you were to have 0803 LEDs, it might actually be better in this particular case than using the smaller 0604s. Alright, generally I just use my fingernail to hold it down. And then we're just going to push the LED in there like that. Let's see if we actually got it. Looks like we did. It's staying in place. Okay, so I'm going to then do the other side as well. The only problem with using your fingernail, I actually did hit the tip of my fingernail there, but that's okay. It's all part of the process. Alright. I really don't like the alignment on that, so what I'm going to do, so if you want it to stay straight, generally what you can do is just hold the LED with good enough. You can just hit that point a little bit with a pair of tweezers to just ensure that your LED is not going anywhere. Okay, so let's. Okay. Solder the other side. So I'm going to do one last time. I'm going to put a little more flux, and then I'm going to run the soldering iron on the other side again just to make sure there's enough solder in place. And then I'll check it out. I'm doing most of this. Normally you want to use a magnifying glass to see what you're doing because this is so tiny, but I'm trying not to completely block this for you so you can get an idea what's going on there. Okay, actually moved a little bit on me there. All right. So let's readjust. Okay. Try one more time on the other side. It's the only trouble with trying to hit both sides. Okay, one more time on the other side here. And excuse my head again, I just need to be able to see. Sometimes it's less about the shot, more about actually getting the work done. Like I said, it would be nice if I had a real you know, tiny camera there. Alright, let's see, I think I keep, yeah. Gonna say every time I touch it, sometimes you pull the solder away if there's a little bit of a gap there, but it looks good. Okay, so let's clean this up. Okay, so what I'm using here to clean up the flux. So I'm removing the flux here using some 90%, 91% alcohol, rubbing alcohol. And the nice thing about it is it evaporates pretty nicely as well. And also makes it easier to see what we've done here. Okay, yeah, looks good. Okay, so we can't really test this until we get the system back together, which I'll be doing next. But sometimes you'll put things back together. I would say in this particular case, you know, maybe don't put the case together 100%. Save yourself a little time having to pull it apart again to test the LED. But it's up to you. If the soldering looks good, you should be good to go, but there is always a chance that the LED itself is defective and or the heat from the soldering iron damaged it while you were installing it. Okay, and that should do it. So get this put back into the system itself. So next we're going to add the the front panel. Okay, plug that down. Okay, so these on the front here we have these gold screws, and I think these were T8s. I don't think I'll be able to secure it down. Yeah, so I need to switch the bit here. This down for a second. Okay. There's the RT8. Put this out so you can see it. Okay. I like the center of this a little bit because it does have a strange sort of trim around it. Okay, that should do the trick there. And this is where our LED is that we already swapped out. And there's a little black line, I think you can see that, on this cable that lines up with the bottom of this panel here. So I'm going to push that in, and once it's pushed in, we're going to push the top clamp down. It's really hard to do for some reason, my index finger. Okay, and then if you've done that properly, so the line there should line up with the bottom of this RF board, where our LED and our power button are when you clamp it down. If it doesn't, you just lift this up and then push it in again. But we are in good shape here. That looks good. Okay, alright, so now we just have to get the top case back on. Now you can get a better look at this now. So you can see here's our U-shaped part of the case, whereas this is more like an L. So we want to put the U shape in first, and then basically pull it over like that. So we want to basically, you can see this better than I can, we want to basically line this up so that we still see a bit of the back of the case, because we need to do the final pull where it goes in. Yeah, so you just want to angle it a bit up, and then it'll fit right in there. And then on this side of the case, you just want to push it down, pull out a little bit so it goes over. There we go. Well, they don't really pull it out too much, you just kind of lay it flat. It sort of just fits in. It's kind of a finicky thing, but you'll know when it's all connected, right? And we just push it back, and there we go. And we know we're good here because the screws should line up really nice. I really do appreciate how much easier this system is to take apart and to deal with. It's almost as if it's designed to be taken apart. Okay, and then they don't even use security bits on the outside, they just use standard hex bits, which is fine by me. The Kinect is the only device that uses, well, aside from the controllers have security bits, but the Kinect had some security bits as well, and they were a real pain. Okay, that's everything back together. You can just double check that our buttons sound good. Okay, they seem to. We'll test them again when it's actually powered on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll hook this up here. We should basically see what we saw before when we were trying out the system for the first time with the drive it originally came with. But we will check that out ourselves here. So I'm going to power this on, and here, let me show you the front of the console as well. And move the keyboard back a little bit. There's the green LED, and I'll show you a nice picture of that. It's hard to see with all the light in here. It bounces off everything. You can't really get an idea for how that looks. But we're going to take our Project Scorpio controller with a green LED. I guess that should do it. So that's the Xbox One X upgrade.